So, hello there. I'm back outside again. Got to take advantage of the weather. Yesterday was a bit manky when I did a couple of recordings. So, number 46. I've got to try and get used to this mirror thing that I actually hold up the opposite side of where it's coming up. I'm trying to give myself a bit more room on the screen here so it's not stuck in front of my face. What we can say is we'll carry on as normal here with a new entry, but actually that's looking at the top 40, which is where I'm taking the material from, or the scores from. But we could actually also, just for discussion's sake, now the wind's kicking in, give it this as well. The reason for that is that it didn't feature in my top 40, but it actually featured in my top 30 songs of all time, and it was as high as number 16, so you could say it's a bit of a drop, that 30 places, and that was actually the first time the artist then had appeared in the 30, which was more of a surprise there, because this is an artist that in my 30s, late 20s, early 30s, I was listening to a lot. I'd have to say that the first 4 or 5 albums are pretty much genius, and then there's a real dip. I actually really dislike, well, I have to say the one, now I'm getting a bit confused in order of when they came out, but there's seeing as I've not given you the artist name yet, it's a bit irrelevant, just talking about pluses and minuses. I can maybe talk about it later when I announce who it is, but this is an artist that was huge in my 30s, so it makes sense that this song was there and high up in the top 30, but then sort of disappeared in the 40 chart, because then I wasn't listening to the artist as much. I have to say I'm still not listening to the artist as much, but there was a bit of a revival later on with a classic album that came out a few years ago. This is another of the artists that I could, a few years ago, have easily done a top 50 purely of this particular person's songs. And it was pretty tough picking this one. There was a lot of backwards and forwards, because there's another 2 tracks on this album as well, which I absolutely adore, but one of them, which was a surefire contender and was hovering in and around just before. But this one tweaks it slightly, just because it's kind of hard and raw. Thematically, it's not anything amazing. It's the album itself could be called a biopic, or a biography, or whatever you want to call it, in that it's a lot of songs about sort of childhood and upbringing, especially in a religious family where this particular artist is not so into religion, having it more forced upon them. And the album takes a pretty dark turn in that one of the tracks is actually a story about how the singer was raped by a fan. So now quite a few of you know who this is and which album it is. But for those who don't, I can say that the album is Little Earthquakes by Tori Amos, and the songs that maybe people would have expected would be Silent All These Years or Winter. I can confirm that neither of those are the track that I've picked. My track is Precious Things, which was actually my mum's favourite Tori Amos track. A little bit surprising there, because she was much more of a pop and sort of ballady fan, so you definitely go for Winter for my mum, if just if you're just like restricting yourself to this particular album, because obviously there's a lot of other ballads and classics that come up on later albums as well. This was actually the second album I got to listen to, in that I was introduced to Tori through MTV, Cornflake Girl, which was on the second album, and that is when I bought that album, and thought it was brilliant, fantastic, listened to it non-stop. And then I saw that she released one before that called Little Earthquakes, so I went and bought that. So it's like I said, she had a big impact with the early albums for me, especially the first two, and then Boys for Pele, which for me is easily her best album. And from the Choir Girl Hotel, I'm a big fan of as well. Then I think the dip started, until we had the Night of the Hunter. I hope it's called that, Night of the Hunter, which is a classical. It's got a bit more of a classical feel, and actually features her own daughter as guest vocalist. And that's a brilliant album, and that's where she sort of came back. And then I haven't really listened much after that. I felt that dip was too heavy, with the butterfly thing and people wearing orange trousers or whatever it was. There was some awful songs in there. But this one is a classic. Great music. She goes a bit mental on it, which I love. And that's number 46 for you. Link, as you can see. Enjoy.